Hello, this is Sarah V from SB Sews Vintage, and I have some upcoming late summer, early fall sewing plans that I would like to share today, and then I would like to make one of them. These are the 4 designs that I have come up with. I've made this one already and it's on my Instagram, and then all 3 of the skirts I'll be drafting out, but I'll be using patterns for the blouses. Today I would like to make this one, and I'm going to be using this fabric. It feels almost like a linen or like a linen look type fabric, and I think I'll be using these buttons. They have a more bluey green in them that matches this along with like olive tones, and I have a good many of them, which I think will be good for a button-up skirt. I'm starting out by just laying my pattern pieces out onto my fabric and seeing how everything is situated so I can figure out what's the best layout for my pattern pieces. They're the tabby cat, that's Scooter, and the cat in the back is Wilma. As I am cutting things out, I am correcting a fatal error that I made. Whenever I made the pattern, I had made a flared skirt and just cut it where I wanted the seam to be for the gores, like as a style line. And then I had forgotten to put seam allowance on that. So I ended up having to recut that front piece that I'm working on now. But I was able to cut another piece out of that piece so it wasn't wasted. But I did have to leave enough room so that I could manually cut out seam allowance on that seam. I'm cutting my pockets out of just some cheap poly cotton. I'm doing this because the skirt fabric is pretty thick. It looks almost like a linen, but it did not wrinkle at all in the whole time it was stored after I washed it, so I'm pretty sure it's not a linen. It's most likely some sort of polyester blend that they made to look like linen. And I'm going to be facing the side of my pockets that connect to the back of my skirt so that from the side you cannot see that the pockets are yellow. And then on the other side, I'm just going to be understitching it so they're not seen. And this just will keep the bulk down where my pockets are at. Here I'm just pinning the back pieces together. I probably should have serged them first because it would have made it easier to serge. And I cut my notches inward just as little snips. So it would have been totally fine to just serge them before I started sewing. But then by the time that I decided to serge all the other panels, I had already pinned those together, so I just waited until I had sewn those together. And at about this point, my cat broke because he heard something outside. Here I am just sewing the waistband together at the side seams. I ended up making the waistband with my bodice block and then tracing the bottom of it over onto some paper and closing the darts, and then figuring out how tall I wanted it to be from there. And then in the front, I figured out how I wanted it shaped and then added the same amount as the skirt placket had so that it would be even whenever the waistband is attached to the skirt. Now I'm just sewing this front side panel to the front panel, and I have interfaced the placket on the side that folds over. It's a fold over placket. Now I'm sewing the back side panels to the back panel. Now I'm just sewing the front of the pocket to the front side skirt panel at the side seam. And shortly I will be not edge stitching, under stitching, so that whenever the skirt is made up, the pocket stays in place, flipped to the inside and doesn't come out. And here I am just doing the other pocket. Here I am just sewing the pocket facing onto the pocket. I had serged all the edges except for the edge with the selvage. And then I had trimmed away the part that hung over with just some pinking shears because I couldn't be bothered to go back and fix it with the serger. Now I'm just sewing the back pocket to the side back. Scooter and I are sewing the pockets together along with the side seams all in one seam. Here I am sewing the waistband together. I wish that I had sewn it with the uninterfaced side on the bottom so that the feed dogs would help distribute the fabric evenly, and then I wouldn't have gotten the little tucks in the fabric. But it's only on the inside, so I didn't bother fixing it. Now I am understitching the waistband edge, and you'll soon see that I flip it over because I get annoyed with the clipped seam allowance running away and like moving where I don't want it to be while I'm trying to understitch it. So I flip to the top, and whenever you do it from the other side, you can kind of feel when the seam allowance is on the right side or not, and it's a little easier. Here I am stitching the waistband onto the skirt. Here I am sewing the waistband shut from the inside so that it will look nice and clean on the outside. Now I am marking my buttonholes and also deciding how long to make them to accommodate the buttons I chose. And of course, Scooter has come to help, but he's not much of a help right now. Now I am making my buttonholes, and I have to say these are the worst buttonholes I've ever made. I've never had as much problems with my buttonholes as I did with this. This machine makes fine buttonholes. I think it was the combined factors of the texture of the fabric along with the thread matching it so well. I just couldn't see where the buttonholes ended and I kept overshooting it. And then I had to correct them. Whilst making buttonholes, Scooter decided that it would be a good time to ask politely if I could open the window blind so he can look out the window. And of course I obliged. Scooter and I are opening all of the buttonholes now, and he is also keeping careful watch of all of the buttons for the skirt. I did, in fact, change the buttons from the green ones, which I thought I was originally going to use because I wasn't completely sold on them. It was more like there was a good many of them and it was convenient, but I didn't really like them. Here I am hemming my skirt with a 1-inch hem. The stitch I'm using is similar to a pad stitch, and it just catches a little bit of the other side and it stays nice and flat with the serging. Ideally, I would have liked to have done a 2-inch hem, but I didn't want to compromise my length, and I thought 1 inch was generous enough. Here is the final skirt. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how my skirt turned out, and the patterning process was pretty smooth except for the waistband, but I had never tried that before. So I could probably just make the alteration to the waistband pattern that I did to the actual skirt, and that should probably fix the problem if I were to make more of these, or use the waistband again for something else. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe so you can see more, and then also hit the like button. It would be a great help. Thank you and bye.